sometimes I do try to spin maybe some more negative-ish style conversations into something that's not as bad. I'm not going to do that here. The Panthers pass rushers, their edge rushers, yikes. Yowzers. Like, not great. Little concerned with how that's going to impact the entire vibe of the early part of the Panthers season. Right? I'm legitimately concerned by it. I have a full list of healthy edge rushers going into training camp. Full list here. Jadeveon Clowney.
Okay.
That one, big, high-price free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Chaisson.
All right.
He of 4 years in the NFL and 5 sacks.
Total, yep. Former first-round pick.
Eku Leota.
Yeah.
Luigi Villain.
Nice.
And DJ Johnson.
Who injured his calf at minicamp.
And was a healthy scratch multiple times last year.
There's that.
Not healthy edge rushers at the beginning of training camp. DJ Wonnum, one of their big free agents coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And Amare Barno, who at least had some experience last year as kind of a gadget special team.
Mostly a special teams player. Really big and fast.
But yeah, he's been on an NFL field. By
the way, ACL injury they suffered, I think, with 2 or 3 games left in the season last year.
So he's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't get to the quarterback, and everything I just read you should tell you the Panthers are going to have a hard time getting to the quarterback, especially early before someone like DJ Wonnum can become a rotational player, which will at least give the healthy guys a little bit of a rest, right? Edge rushers is not a position where you're often playing every snap, right? You have your guys that come in on third down to get after your quarterback. You have your run stoppers. You get into a rotation, which allows you to be a bit more fresh than the offensive players you're playing against. If you aren't getting to the quarterback, it's a long season for everybody, right? Because now your offense has to keep up. Right? Your secondary has to guard for 5-6 seconds. You might have to blitz more, which puts you more exposed to big plays. If you aren't getting to the quarterback, it's a long season. But even if these guys get healthy and the young players develop and they step up and DJ Johnson develops into a rotational player that you trust, if you just aren't getting to the quarterback the first 6 weeks of the season, it can feel like a long season. It's a new regime, new era, new coach, new GM. You only get one first impression.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're out there getting diced up by Derek Carr and Justin Herbert in your first 2 weeks, because those are veteran NFL quarterbacks that if you give all day to throw, I don't care who their wide receivers are, they'll find the open guy 4.5 seconds into a play. Not to mention Gardner Minshew the next week, and then Joe Burrow, and it just the conveyor belt starts like Lucy and Ethel, right? Once you get behind, it's really hard to get caught back up. And oh, by the way, now we're talking optics. You traded away Brian Burns, and you didn't get enough back for him. And if you can't rush the passer, and you willingly moved on from Brian Burns, that's a really tough situation to explain away.
Here's looking at the numbers-wise last year. I'm not going to look at total sacks because the Carolina Panthers were playing from behind often, some teams were running the ball. So look at sack percentage. So that the amount of times an opposing quarterback drops back, what's the percentage you are getting a sack on the quarterback based off that number? Carolina was 31st in the NFL last year at 5.31%. So 5.31% of the time a quarterback dropped back, the Panthers got a sack. That's 31st in the NFL. Only team they were ahead of was Chicago.
It's not good.
So it's like, so even if you take away their best pass rusher from an already bad pass rush.
Gosh. And you know, the reason why that kind of stopped me in my tracks there is that's how you end up with the number 1 overall pick. That's how you end up the worst team in the NFL. That's how you end up getting beat by teams you're better than, right? The easiest way to make a quarterback like tier down, right? If they're a top-level quarterback and you want them to play like a second-level quarterback, is take away their time, right? Make them feel uncomfortable. Make them happy feet. And it's also the way to make a third-tier quarterback a bottom-tier quarterback. It makes your life easier. But not getting to the quarterback is one of those things that impacts everything. It's the equivalent of like not drinking enough water, right? Like if you're dehydrated, just everything stinks. Like if you're not getting to the quarterback, your offense won't be as good, because then as soon as you get the ball, you have to be pushing it downfield. You have to be trying to make up chunks because you have to keep up with what your defense is allowing, and you don't get the chance to establish the run. You don't get the chance to run your counters and set up your play action. You got to be go, and that's tough on your offense. And then if your edge rushing isn't good, it's gonna hurt your stopping the run, because you're gonna look to Derek Brown and you're gonna say, hey, you got to get to the quarterback, man, because our edge rushers aren't doing it. So now he's getting out of position. He's taking chances. Your linebackers are doing more than they should. Your secondary is exhausted. If I'm Dan Morgan and Dave Canales, the worst part about this is it feels predictable. Like, it's one thing to go in with a roster that we all look at and go, oh, they're pretty good edge rushers. And then if they just don't rush the quarterback, it's easy to go like, well, players got to step up. But it's a whole other thing to be at the beginning of training camp and going, their edge rushers are not anything to write home about. And on top of that, 2 of them are hurt, and you knew DJ Wonnum was hurt when you signed him. You knew Amare Barno was hurt at the end of last year. Right? There's not surprises here. Your edge rushers don't look good, and I'm not surprised by it. It's not a good place to be in the NFL, where every year quarterbacks are getting better, right? The passing games just keep improving. Wide receivers coming out of college are better than they've ever been. Play callers, more creative than they have ever been. Every year, 31 other coaches pick something out of Andy Reid's offense in Kansas City and add it to theirs, and theirs get better. And they do the same thing with LaFleur, and the same thing with McVay, and the same thing with every other offensive wonder mind. They're all getting better. And the one tried and true, will never change way to attack these passing offenses is to get the quarterback and get him on the ground and hit him and make him think. Tale as old as time.
I'll say this: a rush defense, I think, is going to be a heck of a lot better than it was last year.
As long as you're not looking to some of those guys and saying, hey, you got to take more chances to get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
If you look at Derek Brown and say, eat up 2 gaps, take up 2 defenders, and clog the middle, their run defense is going to be great. If you look at Derek Brown and say, hey, man, take a couple chances, run that spin move on the inside, we need you to get to the quarterback, it's going to have impacts everywhere else.